Happy Jefferson State to you all out there. It's June 16th, and they just had a demonstration. Was that a demonstration down there? Or you want to get on the radio?
Yeah, it was a court hearing.
A court. Did you listen to the hearing?
No, they didn't allow me in the room. There was only room for like 50 people in the room.
And it was jammed?
Yeah.
And
basically, the judge punted. She didn't make a decision one way or another. She didn't even know if she has a jurisdiction to make a decision.
Okay. Yeah. So there was a big hearing in Sacramento, and about the state of Jefferson, and about the crux of the issue down in the court system is the argument that the North State does not have proper representation, and so it doesn't matter what we think up here. If all of our representatives from the Senate and Assembly and the state all agree, and we all agree 100% in the northern 20-some counties, all it takes is L.A. to feel differently, and they basically tell us what's going to happen up here. And that was never, it's not that they're bad people down there, it's just the governing system of the United States of America was never established to be that way, where somebody in an urban area can tell a rural area what they need to do with their life. And it's a problem in the representation. And so, Santos, could they hear you on the air when you were talking?
Yeah, yes, they could.
Okay. So you heard what he said is he was down there, and it looked like the judge didn't want to, is too politically sensitive or something like that. So if you just stumble here, you don't know what we're talking about or where we're from. We're KMYC, and this is The Patriot. I'm Lou Benninger. This is Live with Lou. We're going to be here for 3 hours, and the other guy that you heard is Santos Vigil, and he's like making us stay up on the roadway and out of the ditch here technologically. So like I say, 3 hours, and normally we would say if you got something to talk about or a question, give us a shout out here, but we're pre-recording this just a few hours ahead of when we normally would come on live, because he and I are having irreconcilable differences. So one week he can't be here, and the next week I can't be here. And so next 2 weeks we're reconciling, and for the next 2 Saturdays we will be here live, and you can call in and you can like pour out your heart to him to figure out what to do. But today, you could call in at 530-742-5555. We won't be able to answer the phone because we're going to be gone, but you can give a shout out if you want, or a shout no, like hell no or hell yeah. And you can give us a shout out if you want, but don't bother. We're not trying to get a bunch of people to call in. It's okay. We're just telling you we don't want to frustrate you, but we're going to be here till noon. And then there's going to be a sports show after that. So if you're out there on the fringe area, like I was down at my sister, I have a half sister, and I was down visiting her in Lincoln, and some people down there in Lincoln at that Del Webb operation down there, Sun City, they listen. And so we were talking about it down there. They were asking me about the show. So I wonder if you can hear it very well because we run out of power. There's not enough. This thing, we got hamsters out behind here running around in a circle, keeping this thing up and running. They say we got a certain amount of power, but I think we're trying to save electricity. So instead of like a 150 watt bulb, we got these little 35s. And so if you can't hear, you can go on your computer. That's what I was telling my brother down there. He was there at the birthday party, and I said, just go on. You can just go on your computer and then go to KMYCradio.com and then hit the listen live button. And if you don't have time to set aside 3 hours on a Saturday, it's high competition on Saturdays for your attention. So you can go to One Eye Blind Media on YouTube. Just go over to YouTube, go on to One Eye Blind Media. And that's 4 separate words. You don't push them all together like on a website address, One Eye Blind Media, and then look for Live with Lou and just click on the show you want to listen to. The difference is that they have to scrub out some of the clips I play because on that on YouTube, they have some different copyright requirements. So it's a little bit different show. But for some people, they like that because they can listen to it in the middle of the night, or they can drive down the road and listen to it on some kind of. And I don't know all the technology. So that's about all I know. Let's see. Well, I wanted to mention a friend of mine before we get started. A friend of mine that helps me at Juvenile Hall for 27 years. He's put on a thing called Praise in the Mountains. And he's a great guy, lives up. He's a former firefighter. And he still is involved in, those tankers that fly around, drop all those chemicals. He manages those things, and has involvement all around the world. So anyway, he's also a musician, and he has a band, and he's put on this thing called Praise in the Mountains for this will be his 27th year. His name's Dennis Hurlbert, and from 1 in the afternoon to 8 at night on September 1st, up in Penn Valley at the Western Gateway Park in Penn Valley, they just put on this big gig. It's all free. Free food, 6 different bands. So there's food, there's a concert, there's bounce houses, there's family fun throughout the whole day. Hundreds of free prizes. This guy gives away bike after bike after bike. I think he even gives away some electric guitars. He gives away all kinds of stuff. He gives away food coupons, like food value cards for stores. It's a cool thing. So they got the Rev City Blues Band going to be there. Amy Ayers is going to be there. WD Gospel Singers, Lisa Daggs. Makira, that's him, my friend. It's a cool band, big band. And Surrender. Cool day. And from 1 to 8, that's September 1st. Everything's free. You just want to take your family up, hang out, have a good time. And Praise in the Mountains is what it's called. So we'll pitch it a little bit here. And it's an awesome deal. We're a little ahead, but you want to get scheduled. And they just welcome everybody. It's just a big fun day. Hallelujah to you, as they say. You hear about one of the big misconceptions is in the United States has been the charade or the sham or a fraud called the green movement, global warming. They had to change that to climate change when it quit warming. And then there's all these concepts like, fossil fuel is bad, bad, bad. Power by water resources is bad, bad, bad. And what we need is solar, and we need like electric cars, and we need like windmills, or I call them bird blenders. And I was just looking the other day, and these things when you look at the science behind all this, true science, it gives me high blood pressure, I think. It makes you furious. So you've driven around California and you've driven around the United States and seen these big arrays of windmills. They're massive. They're huge. They're multi-stories, and they're moving or not moving or whatever, depending on the wind, right? Well, let me just give you some stats on what goes into one of those things, okay? And see if you can kind of get your brain around this. A 2 megawatt windmill, just in your mind, if you don't know what a megawatt is, just say a big one. Just say a big windmill. Contains 260 tons of steel. Now, I want you to just think where that steel comes from and how they created it, right? The energy that went into creating that, right? 260 tons. Now, the whole idea is we're going to create energy out of wind, and it's not going to cost us hardly anything, right? That is the biggest lie, right? That's a big lie. So it took 260 tons for the 2 megawatt windmill of steel. And it requires 170 tons. It required 170 tons of coking coal. Now, for you out in Olivehurst, that is not the same coke you put up your nose. It's coking coal. You could put it up. I've seen people put some weird stuff in their body. They shoot anything almost. When you get desperate, you can't find that cocaine or heroin. So you just make up some stuff and pray over it. Say, the Lord blessed us, so we just jam it up the vein and see if it goes. So coking coal, 170 tons. Now, where do you think they got that coal? What kind of machines did they do to get it? They had to dig it out. They had to blast it out. They had to haul it out, truck it out, process it. So 170 tons of coking coal was used, plus 300 tons of iron ore. So you take 170 tons of coking coal and 300 tons of iron ore, you mine it, you transport it, and you produce these 260 tons of steel. You know, you've seen those steel mills burn, big fires, heat, machines running, hydrocarbon producing machines. When you add up all the energy that was put into 260 tons of steel, requiring 170 tons of coking coal and 300 tons of iron ore, all mined, all transported, and produced by hydrocarbon spewing processes and machines, you end up with a beautiful, white, multi-story windmill that could spin until Jesus comes back and the next Jesus comes back, and you'll never get as much energy as what took to build it. I want you to just hold that thought out there and then go get you some bud, roll it up and smoke it and lay back. Huh? What?
All that's for one windmill?
One windmill. A 2 megawatt windmill. If that makes you want to go do drugs, I do too. I had a gal call me, Tara from the church, call me the other day. I was driving down the road coming from Rockland. She said, "How you doing?" I said, "Good. I haven't done any drugs all day today." I said, "It's a good day and I'm not under the influence." I'm telling you, when you keep reading the amount of money that's being wasted to make electric cars and to produce electricity through stupid means like these bird blenders. And you know something? What about, where are all the ecology people worried about keeping the birds alive? And eagles. What happened to the moratorium on killing eagles? Obama, signed a special exemption. You could chop eagles up if you could produce electricity. Said, screw the eagles. We don't need no damn eagles. Let's just produce that electricity. People, you're nuts. Young people are so stupid today. They got more technology. You can go. I was just thinking how wonderful it is to Google stuff. I just Google stuff. I used to wonder, how do I find out the information about that? And now I just, in 5 seconds, I can get some kind of, it's just an amazing thing. But people are stupider today. They embrace socialism. They embrace a 2 megawatt windmill and think they're saving money, think we're like saving the planet. And we would have been better off just having fossil fuel generating electricity or fossil fuel powered cars. It's crazy. It's totally crazy. I was noticing it's just, the world is going nuts. It's upside down. They're saying things that are right. They say they're wrong. They say things that are wrong. They say they're right. I read this article and I felt like I was this guy. This guy has lived on Long Island, New York, his whole life. And he's lived in the village, a small village or town of Mutton Town. I'd never heard of it. I know Mutton, I know town, but I never heard of Mutton Town. He's lived in this home. He's probably an old timer. He's lived in it since he was 12 years of age. So remember Superstorm Sandy? It came in there and busted things up and flooded some places up and down the coast, right? You remember that? And so he had a lot of trees on his property, and so it snapped off limbs, split limbs, did a lot of crazy things, right? So one tree fell over and damaged 6 others on its way down. So 2 months after that happened, he had 7 trees removed. So then he got into a scrap with the city because, like typical of government in the United States today, they want to have a say in everything you do. You get to put your name on the property title, but really you can't do anything with your property, particularly in California. I think New York's a lot like California. The Fritz family that moved out of Marysville, they moved over to Idaho. He was telling me how he went into the building department up there to Idaho. Is it Hagerman or Hagman? And because he was used to asking permission to fart, right? Said, can I fart now? How many farts can I have for this amount of money? And so he went to the building department, and he needed to do something on his property, and he thought, in Marysville, you have to ask permission. And the guy says, I don't know why you're asking me this question. He said, because I want to do something. And he says, it's your property, dude. Do whatever you want to do, right? And here, he wanted to remove another tree or so, and he got in a conflict with the city, and the Muttontown Village attorney, Stephen Leventhal, said cutting down a tree in this North Shore community is like polluting beaches on the South Shore. Like, that's how holy, those trees are holy. And you can't just, in other words, you're not smart enough on your own property to determine whether a tree should come down or not. So we all have to discuss it because we're smarter than you. We've been anointed by God to determine which tree should stay up and which tree down. So village code regulates the removal of trees with a diameter of 7 inches or more. And a permit is required for the removal unless it's an emergency. So the law calls for a removal fine of $250 per tree inch measured around the diameter. In this case, it added up to $22,500 on this one tree. And if he doesn't pay it because he already cut the tree down, he faces 15 days in jail. So they've been fighting over this for 5 years. No wonder people go postal. And so Mr. Leonardos, who is the gentleman who cut his tree down, because he said it was a safety issue. The tree had a problem. He's not against trees. He was great until the storm came through and snapped them all off, a bunch of them, created a big problem. So he said, fine, put me in jail. I just think if more people would go to jail, instead of paying people off, just said, screw you, put me in jail and feed me and I'll do my time. Now the Hammonds, Mr. Hammond and his son, Stephen is one of the Hammonds. I can't remember that. I got him here on the list here. The Hammonds family, they've been fighting with Oregon, and they've been doing time. They did one of them got 1 year, and one of them got 3 months for starting a backfire because they were afraid of the government lands catching on fire and burning over all their grazing crop. So they started a backfire to burn a line so it couldn't break over and get into their business. And that fire got out of hand and burned 120 acres of just open land, open government land. And so they said, you're an arsonist. They called them arsonists. Before you came to Glad Tidings, before we built out there, I used to farm that property. And so I used to burn off. I lit a bunch of brush piles on fire. We've done that before, you and I. And it caught the whole freeway on fire. It got away from me. And they're more forgiving here. They just said, oh, it's a bummer, man. That's a bummer. So they shot it out now. And I've done that twice. Once I became a chaplain for the fire department, they just made me feel stupid, the firefighters. They gave me a hard time. But they didn't put me in jail. The Hammonds now, they did their time. Then the prosecuting attorney didn't like it, so he appealed to sentencing to another court, and they gave them both 5 years. That was the minimum. First they were going for 5 years. But the judge said, I'm just going to give you guys 3 months and a year. Because they didn't do any real damage. It was just barren ground. But they called them arsonists, right? And these are farmers. These are cattlemen. And so now they're both doing it. And now they're asking Trump, the people are asking Trump to pardon these dudes, right? So I don't know whether they're going to get pardoned or not. Some people think they're kind of renegades, but I think they're just farmers who just like me, they're just fed up with getting jerked around, and like Mr. Leonardos in New York, who's getting faced with cutting down a damaged tree and going to pay $22,500 to this Muttontown Village. All right, we'll be right back.
Did you know that Article 4, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution lays out the framework for the state of Jefferson's plan to split California? A state can be formed from the land within another state if the state legislature and Congress approve it with a simple majority vote. 51% is all it takes. Your vote doesn't count in Northern California. California is broken and the time has come for 51. Please visit SOJ51.net and donate now to show your support.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. Papers are weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch which features local news and events for the Yuba Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information, along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
All right. Welcome back. This is Lou Benninger. You're listening to Live with Lou, and we've been featuring some anti-tax songs over the last couple of weeks because all these jurisdictions up and down the state of California want to add more taxes, and the reason they are wanting to add them at the local level is because they got their tit in a ringer on this CalPERS and CalSTRS. Those are the state pension programs for public employees and teachers, and the politicians promised the unions so the politicians could get elected. It's kind of like having sex with your daughter. It's incestuous, and it's kind of easier to have sex with your daughter than finding yourself somebody downtown that would like you and spend time with you, right? So you just take advantage of her, and the same way that the politicians do with the unions. They go and they give them what they want, and the unions give the politicians what they want. So they overpromise the politicians, and now we're like $1 trillion upside down. For you out in Olivehurst, that means we haven't got the money. Just like when you can't pay your rent, that's called upside down. We're $1 trillion upside down, and we can't afford to do this. So the CalPERS and CalSTRS tells the participating agencies, like your cities and your counties and your different kinds of government agencies, we can't fund these pensions, so we want you to give us more money, lots more money. And where is that money coming from? All of us out here, you and me out here on our little streets and avenues and alleys paying these taxes, and we think, oh, we're paying these taxes so we can have police. Oh, we're paying these taxes so we can have fire. Oh, we're paying these taxes so we can have sewage and roads. And then they say, well, no, it's not enough to have those because we done spent all that money elsewhere on pensions, right? Back in the day when I was growing up, the better paying jobs were in the private sector. And government jobs were a little lower paying, but you didn't get laid off. Once you got on with the government, because it had to function forever, amen, you just had that job. If you liked that job, you just stayed there for the rest of your working days. And they kicked in a little retirement. And so the people out in the private sector, it was more risky. There was more, you didn't know, you might get laid off. The business may be successful. Maybe it wouldn't. Maybe you'd get sick and you couldn't work very long. And maybe you didn't have any retirement. But you could work 2 or 3 jobs. You had a lot of options, right? And so, but now, the jobs in government are so much higher doing the same type of skills. That's when I get a kick out of some high-paying people say, oh, Lou, I could get a job. They get steamed because I say, you're overpaid and you're underperforming. So they say, oh, Lou, I could get a lot better job in the private sector. Hey, I said, don't let that door hit you in the ass, partner. Just go on out there and get one. Go get one of those jobs and open up an opportunity. Somebody wants your job. Right? They all talk trash, oh yeah, if I was in the private sector. Yeah, it talks about the same way these guys smoking weed all the time. Said, oh yeah, if I wanted a job, I could go get one. I said, there you have it. So the counties and the cities and the state is going broke. Oh yeah, they say about me, oh, Lou, he's not telling the truth. I say, I'm not the one out begging for money. You're not going broke? The county's not going broke. The city's not going broke. The other day, somebody said, oh, well, the sales taxes, they raise sales taxes in the city of Marysville. We pay an extra % on everything we ever buy, including cars, even if we buy them in outer Slumbodia. And so instead of making $1 million or $1.5 million or something, they say they doubled that. In the first year, they took that extra 1% in, and all these other counties and cities, they started drooling after that money. And I heard the other day they were putting together the budget, and they were just so happy. Like, how come this budget's looking so good? And then I heard that the city manager forgot to put in the B Street property payment of almost $700,000 and had to go back in there and redo the whole budget. Now, if you want to correct me, somebody can call out here and fix me up. But I was just told that with a pretty reliable source that, like, you know, it's like, hey, if you're the big dog and making the big money, don't be making those mistakes. It's not my fault. It's like, I'm very aware of that B Street property boondoggle payment of almost $700,000 for the next 25 years, $17 million for 5 funky acres down there on B Street. But that's what we got. So it ain't my fault. So here's what's happening. All these agencies and people, they're just going out and lying to the public. So I got a kick out of it. I wrote this article in the Territorial Dispatch, and I told how you get these flyers. They did this robocall. You know, you answer the phone, and it's not a real person on the other end. It may be Jesus. They say, "Oh, this is Jesus talking," right? We had James Gallagher calling in, endorsing Amanda Hopper, right? But James is either his sister or sister-in-law works for her, you know. So he didn't want his sister or sister-in-law, whoever it is, didn't want to lose the job. So he was out doing robocall and how wonderful that office was. So you can have these people call in. And so they paid about $30,000 to robocall all these. They made contact on 500 or 600 robocalls and did a little survey. And so I guess on that robocall, maybe they had live people calling, but they did a little survey on, hey, do you like the police? Do you want us to keep the police? How about fire department? If you have a heart attack, do you care whether they come in 3 minutes or 35 minutes? You know, one of those surveys. It's like the answers are stupid, right? Everybody could have answered that for you because it's like, would you like to eat tomorrow? Right, one of those questions. So that they were just wanting to test the temperature out there, right? It wasn't like some esoteric question like, where do you think you'll live in the next 5 years? It was like, do you think would you like people to stop molesting people and stabbing them in the back? Right, those are those kind of questions. So they would think they were being really sneaky and intelligent about it. They spent nearly $30,000 of our tax money. And they are totally arguing that it's totally justified promoting this new tax in Yuba County. And they're doing it all up and down the state. In fact, in the primary election, Howard Jarvis said, I don't know whether there was 90 of these things on the ballot up and down the state. So I wrote in an article how they send out all these expensive cards. I don't know whether this is about a foot by 6 inches card on fancy stock. So they sent out, then after they did that audio call, they did the call with a person asked you a question. Then they sent out this mailer where you can go online or you can fill it out on a card and mail it back in. So the postage is paid both ways for you. And it would ask all those stupid questions like, do you hope you won't have cancer next week? Right? One of those questions. So anyway, the whole idea is, we just want to know the pulse of the people. Well, they don't ask the pulse of the people when they spend millions of dollars for stupid stuff, and I'm going to tell you about one in just a minute. But I no sooner put that article in the paper, and I went to my post office box, and I went to my box on the side of my house, and I went to the post office, and there's stacks of these. People throwing them all over the place. They weren't even reading them. They just get them out, throw them in the garbage. There's stacks of them all over. So I grabbed me a handful. And so right on this is about, I wrote in the paper about this. I thought, I'm going to be a prophet. I said, if I'm going to start a 900 line where I could just tell people who they're going to marry and stuff, they send me $50. Anyway, on this deal, it said, I told them about every time we come to fire season or flood season, they send out one of these cards because we're too stupid. You know, government now, they know we're stupid. And they got to tell us, listen, if you are living in the rural areas, cut your grass down or water it really good and make a defensible space. That's what this card's about. They send it every year because we can't remember from one year to the next. It's just like, it's getting hot. Aren't we supposed to get some instructions right now about how to not catch ourselves on fire? So, but right at the beginning of says the threat of wildfires in Yuba County is high. Every time it gets hot, it gets high. And then it says, what are your priorities for public safety in Yuba County? Now, that's new. They snuck that in there. Be part of the Yuba County 911 survey. Go to www.yuba.org and click on Join the Conversation. Oh, yeah, we're going to have a conversation. How often do you want to have cancer? How often do you want to have a ham sandwich? You know, are you tired of people getting molested in your neighborhood? Are you tired of the bad guys running free on the streets? Right? That's the kind of stupid questions they ask. So anyway, then they go on after they get you doing that, and they tell you as if you just woke up, were born over at Rideout Hospital, and then they had your mom take you home, and then you got a house and you grew up and you've never seen a fire before in your life or high grass, and you just don't have a clue, and you don't have any plan. In other words, if a fire started or a flood started, you would just be totally confused. Is the whole world flooding? Maybe the whole world's flooding. It happened with Noah, so maybe it's happening again. Like, who knows? So here's the preparedness. Be prepared and self-sufficient. Well, there you have it. I was waiting all year for this. Be prepared and self-sufficient. What's that mean? Have a couple energy drinks in the trunk. Have a family plan. Prepare an emergency kit. On and on and on. So these expensive things, I thought, I got a whole handful of these things. I thought, if I would have been running a business, like what I wrote in the paper, I said, why don't you let the insurance companies send these out and they pay for them, and then advertise their insurance company, buy fire insurance from us or buy flood insurance from us. No. No, we're going to do it, and we're going to take your money. See, the whole deal is you're too stupid as a taxpayer, so we want your money, and then we're going to spend it like we should. Like, you can't figure out how to put on a condom, but we got nurses out there at the health department that will show you how to do that. And because if you put it on backwards, that is a bad deal, and you can't just flip it over after you put it on backwards, then because you already got it contaminated. Now, even prostitutes get confused on that one. So you have to take it off, put it aside, check the expiration date on the package, open it carefully, make sure there's no holes in it, and then try it the right way next time. Now, that takes a health department nurse, probably making about $80,000, $90,000 a year plus benefits, to make sure that your condom is on nice and tight, and it's not expired, because if it's an expired condom, everything's at risk. So now we got a card here because I can't manage my own damn life. So I got a card here that tells me that I need to figure out what I'm going to do. So I was going to tell you, before I do, I'm going to tell you something about how we're wasting money in Yuba County. And I know some of you probably think, Lou, don't you know anything other than Yuba or Sutter County? Honestly, I don't know too much. I'm a dropout, and I did independent studies. I was too independent to stick in a class. I just did it on my own. And so if you're in Nevada County, Placer County, Butte County, Colusa County, Sacramento County, God forbid that you can hear us all the way in Sacramento County, you got the same problems. They just got different people's names, different labels. So I want to mention that the Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots supports us to be on the air, because we're not good enough out here for the big kahuna to pay us, so we got to pay him. That's how bad this is out here. So he says, hey, if you want to be on the radio, dude, you got to kick down some shekels. So we do. And so Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots helps us, but they've been doing meetings on the first and third third Mondays of each month out of the Church of Glad Tidings. But they're going to change it up. They're going through a little change, and they're coming up here on June instead of the third Monday of June. They're going to do Thursday, June 28th, and they're going to have a meeting in Yuba City at the City Hall, 1201 Civic Center Boulevard. That's Civic Center and Butte House Road, at a kind of a modern, cool building. And there's a Sutter Room. They call it the Sutter Room over there. And they're going to gear up. The Sutter Buttes Tea Party Patriots they also switch hats, and they call themselves the Yuba Sutter Constitutional Republicans. And they are getting behind gubernatorial candidate, I think is the way you say it, John Cox. Some of you couldn't get your ducks in a row to figure this out, but thank God he beat out the Democrat mayor down there, Villaraigosa. And so we got Cox, and so his representative is going to be here on Thursday, June 28th at 6:30 at that spot, Yuba City Hall, basically, the Sutter Room. You got it? And so we need to, if you think that the state is going to get straightened out without you doing anything, you just will move over to Idaho, because it ain't going to get straightened out. You're going to need to sling some money, vote, talk to your friends, and get them motivated to do something other than what we've been doing, because what we've been doing got us where we are today, which is a really funky spot. So they're wanting registered Republicans to attend this meeting and join other conservative. You know something, people? I know a lot of you are conservatives that you done left the Republican Party behind, and you're declined to state, because you could tell by the votes on a lot of the conservatives got more votes percentage-wise than there was Republican registration in the state. The Republican registration in the state sucks because the party sucks, right? And so what's happening is a lot of people walked away from the parties, both of them, but there's a lot of conservatives around. So I would go to this. And this is an organizational meeting. Now, if they tell you, and I haven't talked to these folks, but if they tell you you can't come unless you're a Republican, then just say Lou gave us bad advice. But my interest in you going is that you find out what Cox is about. If you were a Travis Allen devotee, some of you guys were in a cult. That was a Travis Allen cult, man. You guys couldn't see past nowhere. But if you can't go to that, if they want to look at your card on the way in, my bad. But I think we need all the people we need Democrats, we need decline to state, we need communists, we need anybody we can to get this state straightened out. So if you want to, if you're confused, you could call Tammy at 530-701-2845. 530-701-2845. That's that. All right. Now, here's what government does. Government, as I said before, takes your money because they have better ideas for it than you can come up with. You just aren't as creative as they are. And it's a funny thing. You'll elect a grocer to a city council meeting. So you'd think, or a city council or a supervisor's spot. And you think, oh, he's a sharp guy. He's run a grocery store. So you'd expect he'd be good with food and that type of stuff and management stuff. But when he gets on that board, all of a sudden he thinks he knows how to do nuclear physicist stuff. And he knows he knows all about salmon. He knows about fish and ecology, and anything you want to bring up, he's got an answer for. It's stupid. So they take your money and then they just start doling it out to people that they want to bless, right? They pick and choose. It's called crony. Remember, a crony is like a buddy, a crony. Crony capitalism. You take money away from one group of people and you think, I kind of like that guy over there. In fact, he might vote for me next time, so I'm going to give him some money. So recently, up in the foothills, we got this thing called the Yuba County Water Agency. They manage for the citizens of the county. The Yuba County Water Agency has gotten full of themselves, and they think they are really the big dogs, and they put up with the county, but they're kind of separate from the county. And so they now they got control of Bullards Bar Dam from Pacific Gas and Electric, and they got all these millions of dollars come in. So the same guys that are supervisors for Yuba County just change hats, and then they double dip into the county treasury, and they get paid a second time for being on the board of the Yuba County Water Agency, and they're dipping out of both pockets to take care of business around the county. So when they run out of your tax dollars and they misspend your tax dollars, then they go over and dip into the Yuba County Water Agency cash and make up for it. And then what they do is they use that Yuba County Water Agency money to make the politicians look good on that board, so then they get reelected. And I'll give you an example. So the 5th District, which is the Hill District of Yuba County, which includes Bullards Bar Dam and the Yuba River and all those lakes, beautiful lakes up there. It's beautiful up there, isn't it? Browns Valley, Loma Rica, Brownsville, Dobbins, Oregon House, Smartville, beautiful up there. And so all of a sudden, during this recently, the 5th District Supervisor and the 1st District Supervisor both in an election campaign. So each time there's an election, a couple different people have to run. They don't all run at the same time. So the Hill District Supervisor, Randy Fletcher's running, and shazam, all kinds of money's coming out of the Yuba County Water Agency. They gave $100,000 to a fire department for their fire truck. And then the North Yuba Water District, who's been mismanaged, and they're cutting off water to all their people, claiming there wasn't enough water, even though the dams are overflowing with water above them. They gave them a few $100,000 to put pipes in their ditches to help them out. Well, isn't that wonderful? What amazing timing. I mean, Jupiter and Venus and Mars are all lining up beautiful. We need to check their horoscope out, Fletcher's horoscope and the Yuba County Water Agency. Man, life is the suns and the stars. It's just man, it's unbelievable. Everybody's going to get pregnant over there or something like that. Things are really coming together. And so then I got this photo. It was an unbelievable photo. And it's a photo of Supervisor Fletcher, and he's standing with the representative, chairman of the Sai Akim Maidu tribe. And I said, well, there's old Randy. I used to be on the school board with him. He's all smiley and everything, and the other dude's smiling, and he's handing a set of keys to him. And I thought, well, what's he doing there? He's got a beautiful pickup. It's looks like about a 3/4-ton pickup. Big old pickup with a rack on the back and looking good. And here's what it says. This is from the Yuba County Water Agency. It says, today, we handed over the keys to one of our surplus trucks. I said, damn, why don't you give me one of them surplus trucks? Who's getting those surplus trucks? And I keep hearing that if somehow you can show the water agency that there's some sort of connection with you with water or flooding or something, like for instance, if you have a road that's near Bullards Bar Dam and you need to get it paved and you need to get down that road fast in case of a flood, they'll pave that road for you. So I thought, I'm going to change my name to Waters, Lou Waters, and see if there's a nexus there. And maybe they could help a brother out, do a solid for a brother. Or Rivers, Lou Rivers, or Lou Flood, anything to do with water. And so I noticed, let me get this photo. I need to read this to you. This is right off the Yuba County Water Agency Facebook site, I think. Today, we handed over the keys to one of our surplus trucks. I said, my God, if that's a surplus, what do the good ones look like? I've never seen a truck it's a beautiful truck. I've never owned a truck like that in my life. We know that it is in good hands, the truck, and will be put to use at the Sycamore Ranch. The Sycamore Ranch is a little park right along the river. And the Kulu Village. Now the Indians, they snookered the county by convincing them that was a village right there at one time. And then they put up these teepees, and we asked them, where'd they get that bark? That's not bark from around here. What are you guys doing? Where'd that bark come from? They said they had to import that bark out from outer Slumbodia. It didn't even belong in California. It probably brought some funky beetle in with it. So they built these teepees out of imported bark. I said, my dudes didn't have any way to import that bark. So the Sycamore Ranch in the Kulu Village helping the tribe further their efforts in educating youth in our community about the Yuba River. Now, our church, if we would have just thought about it and said, we want to educate the youth about our river, I wonder if they'd kick down a surplus truck to Glad Tidings. Just a thought. And so we're going to tell about the Yuba River, its history. Now, I used to float down the Yuba when I was in high school. I don't know whether that'd qualify for me to get a grant of a surplus truck. And the importance of helping sustain a healthy salmon population. That's a bad sign right there. I guess somebody else needs to talk for a minute. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we're right here for 2 more hours. And think about ways that you could get yourself a surplus truck. All right. Well, we're talking about taxes and government out of control. And our United States of America has been out of control for a long time. Donald Trump, God bless him, happy birthday, Donald Trump, President Trump, he calls it the swamp. And we think, oh, yeah, the swamp back in Washington, D.C. No. The swamp is everywhere. Swamps, wherever government is. So we're talking about taxes. And before, in the last segment, I was talking about the meeting coming up on the 28th of June over at the Yuba City Hall, and Eric Eisenhammer, who is the director of grassroots operation for the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association, is going to be there. Now, the reason I bring him up is I really like Howard Jarvis Taxpayer Association. They've been very helpful to me. You can go on their website, hjta.org, I think it is. If it doesn't work, do com. But just go there. It's loaded with good information. So he's going to be here, and he is a great public speaker. He's knowledgeable about the areas of tax and energy policy and digital communications. And Eric is a small business owner with 10 years of experience working in the support of lower taxes and job creation. So anyway, the idea is to jumpstart a move to push John Cox. So go check that out, okay? So we were talking about this truck, and I got all excited when I saw this truck because I thought maybe I can get one of those trucks, and maybe Glad Tidings could get one of those trucks but then somebody once told me, they said, Lou, government, every time I've tried to work with government, like one day I was sitting in a Yuba County meeting. Dan Logue was the supervisor, and we were painting out graffiti trying to clean up the county. It was really bad. But we've been painting it out for free for many, many years. And Dan was talking to some of the county people about kicking down some paint and money. And they said, well, we need to be careful about a gift of public funds. A gift of public funds. And that phrase stuck in my mind because people can't, the government is taking our money and they do business on behalf of the people, right? Like they fix the sewer and they keep the light pole up and they patrol the streets and right on our behalf. God bless them. I hope they do it good. And but then when they turn around and they get rid of stuff, they got to be really careful because they can't show preference over one group versus another group or give it to their friend. Like a guy got arrested a year or two ago, or several years ago, and I can't remember whether it was Yuba or Sutter County government, and he was offering some computer equipment that was surplus equipment, quote unquote, surplus equipment. And he got his tit in a ringer over there because he was given, it was a gift of public funds, or maybe he was selling it even, right? In other words, nobody wanted it with the county, so he took it, then he sold it. You can't do that. So all of a sudden I got to thinking about this nice pickup, and I thought, why doesn't Don Ryberg, chairman of the Si Akim Maidu tribe, buy his own damn pickup? Right? Why didn't he buy his own pickup? I mean, at Glad Tidings, we never come out there, we never go into the government and say, buy us a van, buy us a pickup, because we're helping drug addicts. Like, the government is totally incompetent to help a drug addict. But here we're helping them, but they don't want, we're not down there asking them to give us a van. You know why we don't? Because it's a gift of public funds. So I was wondering, maybe the Yuba County Water Agency should cut themselves a special deal where they don't follow the same rules that other government agencies do where they can just give stuff to, they can choose to give something to Peter, but not to Paul. Now, down there in Sacramento, I noticed that Tykert Construction worked out a sweetheart deal with the county of Sacramento, but other gravel companies felt, listen, that wasn't fair what you did right there, and they sued the county of Sacramento and got $100 million judgment. $100 million judgment because the county was preferring to bless. That's what happens in politics. Obama, all these Republican, I'm not picking sides. They all do it because you scratch my back, I got you. I'll take care. Oh yeah, you want that ditch over there? Yeah, we'll get that ditch for you. Yeah, you take care of me, I'll take care of you. So it just so happens right here when Randy Fletcher is in the midst of an election campaign, he's up there giving away trucks. I'm going to run for office if I can get somebody if the government will give me trucks to give away. I think I could get me 4 or 5 votes. Now, somebody ran into somebody and they said that they were our 8th listener. And I said, well, I haven't talked about how many listeners. I said I quit counting when we got past 50. And, but I think I could get me some more listeners if I gave away a truck. You think so? If I give away a truck, maybe if the Yuba County Water Agency had some surplus trucks, I could maybe give a truck away. In fact, the trauma intervention program that I run, we've been out on 22 calls for this month already. It's June 13th, isn't it, today? Huh? Well, let's see. Tomorrow will be the 5th. Oh, it's 16th tomorrow. So, but today when we're doing this show, it's the 15th. We've done 22 calls. So we used to do a big dinner, but I won't go into all the song and dance, but it quit being as profitable as it was. So we've been using some gimmicks. And so last year we, say 6-7 months ago, we auctioned off a gun, raffled off a gun. So I'm going to announce that I got a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm handgun, and that thing will shoot somebody really good. And so if you want to buy that, or you want to buy some tickets, I'll sell you some tickets. You can just send them over here, your money, and I will I'll send you back to Stubbs and all that and put your tickets in the container. And on September 9th, there's going to be a golf tournament, the Hank Sanchez Golf Tournament here in town. And that's going to be a fundraiser for trauma intervention this year. They've done that for several years. Hank Sanchez is a good friend of mine and actually a good friend of many people in this area. And he was always really a public servant. He worked for PG&E, and he always used to support trauma intervention. So this year they're going to donate all the proceeds from that golf tournament. And so we thought, well, let's just sell some tickets. We're going to sell 300 tickets at $20 a piece, and you have a chance, 1 out of 300, to win this gun. And if you buy 1 ticket, if you bought 10, you have more chance, obviously. So this is Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm handgun. And if you're interested and you want to send me some money, you can just make the check out to TIP, T-I-P, and send it to Box 645, Marysville, and I will mail you back to Stubbs, and I will deposit the other part with your name on it in the box, and then you don't need to be present for a win. We'll just give you a shout-out and get you the gun when you win it. All right, there's that. So anyway, we're talking about how government just takes our money and has a better idea and does stupid stuff with it. So I'm telling you, I don't know whether that truck never saw the road much or has just high mileage. We used to say in the car business, I was in the car business once, this is stupid. Listen to this. If a car had 150,000 miles on it and it was kind of a young car, we just say they're all road miles, as if you could drive it off the road, right? They're all road miles. In other words, it really didn't have a hard time. It just has a jillion miles on it. So I don't know whether those got 150 million miles on that truck, but they're all road miles. Sure is a pretty truck. And I wish I had one just like it. I bet a lot of organizations, if they're starting to give trucks out, surplus trucks. If you drive by the Yuba County Water Agency, they got lots and lots of employees. They're hiring all the time now because they got all this kind of money. You didn't used to take all the employees to run that Bullards Bar Dam, but now it's got really complicated. So now if you go down to 12th and F, you can see their big, beautiful building down there. It's one of the nicest buildings in Marysville. And you can see all the beautiful cars in that parking lot. Man, nobody down there is making minimum wage, I'll tell you what. So anyway, that's what's happening there. Now this week, because on one hand, we're giving money away. We gave $1.5 million for a pilot project to reduce wildfire risk because the state of California is too stupid to figure out you got to thin out trees. So now we're having to pay $1.5 million out of a county fund to do that. We gave $300,000 for a fire truck. We gave $100,000. We gave $300,000 for a ditch project. We're just dishing the money out. We got to get Randy elected. That's what they're trying to do. And so they call it pay to play. That's what it is, pay to play. Now this week, they being the Yuba County supervisors, they are totally impartial. Now they announced a meeting and they had it out there, I think in Wheatland. They're going on tour pitching this 1% sales tax. So I didn't go to the meeting, but some friends called me and said people are talking trash about me at that meeting. And but the interesting thing was about the meeting is that there were all kinds of government employees there. And they said there were at least 3 supervisors there. And I thought, well, I was talking to a friend of mine today, and she said, Lou, they didn't post that meeting. And you know how you're supposed to post a meeting. It's a Brown Act, Ralph Brown Act. That's in the 1950s. Ralph Brown came up with the idea that government was doing too much business behind closed doors. So they came up with the Brown Act to say supervisors or city council people, if you're on a school board, you can't have a meeting outside the meeting unless you post it and let the public know you're all going to be there and you may talk about something that affects them. So 3 supervisors at least were at this meeting, but I don't think it got posted. So it was like a violation of the Brown Act, some people are thinking. But they got there and they were talking all kinds of trash, how the poor Yuba County doesn't have enough money to hire the deputies. You know, it's like I used to do counseling for, I shouldn't even call it counseling. I never even liked to do it. People would come to me and they'd say, Lou, our finances are all screwed up. Help me straighten out my finance. I used to help some people. And they'd say, Lou, we just don't have time to have money to pay the rent. I said, well, what else you spending the money on? Well, I don't want to talk about it. I said, why don't you write down everywhere you're spending money? If you can't pay your rent and you can't pay your PG&E bill and you can't pay your food, your basic stuff, write down everything, keep track of everywhere you spend your money, and let me know what it is. And then I never hear from them again. Because they don't want to deal with that, right? Because they're spending money all over the place. So the county, now here's the interesting thing. We have, I didn't bring my notes, but I think I was told today that there's like 180 or 90 ICE inmates, immigration inmates in the Yuba County Jail. They're making $90 or so a piece per night on each one of those. I want you to just hold that thought. That's a lot of money. And so back in the 1990s, when they created the bigger jail, they enlarged the jail. And before that, they were just local guys and gals that were arrested. And at that time in the early 90s, when you paid your taxes, the major thing that you paid for, or that they put that money towards, was the sheriff's department and the fire departments, etc. Right? But when the ICE money began, when the federal government began to deposit prisoners here until they could figure out whether they're going to deport them or not, they started giving us a certain amount per night per bed. I think it started down around $70, and then over the years it's increased to cover the cost of overseeing them, getting them to if they needed medical care, feeding them, clothing them, taking care of them, right, while they're incarcerated. So it's just like a big hotel. And now they say it's over $90 a night. But what happened was, instead of taking that money, and so they had to hire more people, more cooks, more medical people, more deputies that would work in the jail because they had more people. They doubled the size of the jail, right? There's kind of half and half. Half are local, half are out from all over the world. And so what happened was, instead of taking this ICE cash flow paying for the expenses, and any profits set them aside in a special fund for big projects, and then keep funding the sheriff's department like you always have with your budget. They took the sheriff's budget and spent it elsewhere, committed it elsewhere. Now, it's kind of like when a person does methamphetamines. They were beautiful. Maybe they were the high school cheerleader, and they ate regularly. They ate 3 meals a day. They were concerned about their nutrition. They worried about their acne. And then all of a sudden, they started doing meth, and they got skinny, and because they weren't hungry anymore. And they thought, they looked in the mirror, and they still saw the same cheerleader, but they were all sucked up and had sores and everything. But they were on meth, right? Crank, methamphetamines. And so that's what the county has now done. In fact, the term it's called ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE crack cocaine. ICE crack is like they got all this money coming in, and the county supervisors, not just this last 5, but even those before them, sucked that money off from the sheriff's department, the proper funding of the sheriff's department, and told them to live on the ICE crack. You got it? And so now that isn't enough money to carry the sheriff's department, and they've spent the money elsewhere through higher salaries. I mean, we got a health and welfare gal over there making like between $200,000 and $300,000 a year. We got, or around $200,000 a year when you add in all the benefits. We got a county administrators making $250,000 a year. We got all kinds of people, hundreds of people making over $100,000 a year. And the median household in Yuba County is like $47,000 a year. And that's a household with, sometimes you have 2 wage earners in that household. Hold that thought. So you got these people earning all kinds of money because they took that money out of the sheriff's department and spread it around to other areas. And now they're saying, oh, well, you're not giving enough money to the government. That's the problem. You're not giving enough money. You taxpayers are too squinchy. So we want more money, and then what they're going to do is there's 2 ways to get more money. You can have a vote where you just have to have 50% plus 1, or a vote you have to have 2/3. If you have 2/3, then you have to specify that all the money will go directly to the sheriff's department, right? If you do 50% plus 1 on a tax, then you can use the money wherever you want. Now, here's what they're going to do. I already know this. It's because you can be stupid. I'm not that smart. You can be stupid and still figure this out. You don't have to be a prophet. You don't have to be on LSD and see a sign in the heavens. They're going to go for the 50% plus 1, and here's what they're going to say, you can trust us. And they're going to manipulate and utilize guys like honest people like Steve Durfer and Fire Chief Rich Webb, Sheriff Durfer and Rich Webb, because they're the most reputable people in the county. So they're going to use them like hookers. And they're going to roll them out there, and they're going to say, you can trust these guys. Well, Steve Durfer is going to be gone on December 31st of this year, and Rich Webb is going to be right behind him a year or 2 down the road. And new people come in, and they will spend that money however they want. They'll say, we need that money. It's going to be dedicated to the sheriff and the law enforcement and fire. And here's the deal. Even if it was a 2/3 vote and it had to go to the sheriff's department, you know what they do? Then they take other money that would be funding the sheriff's department. They take that away. They call that the money being fungible. Fungible. It's an interesting word, like fungus. It's a fascinating word. Fungible. It's fungible. You can move it around. So they say, oh, now we got, even if they did the 2/3 vote and the people of Yuba County really believed everybody, they believed all the lies, and they gave him 2/3 of the votes of Yuba County, and then they say, okay, that $2 or $3, $4, $5 million is going to go right to the sheriff's department, and you could follow it, you could track it, just like breadcrumbs getting back to your house. But then they could take other money that would normally go there, and they take it and spend it elsewhere. Now, that's exactly what happened when the ICE money came in from the federal government. They took the other money and spent it elsewhere. They'll do the exact same thing. However, whatever way they put this on the ballot, whether it's a 50% plus 1 vote or a 2/3 vote, they will take money away from that, because the supervisors, it isn't the sheriff's fault. It isn't the fire chief's fault. They present a budget to the supervisors that says, this is what I need to run this department. And the supervisors, they slice and dice all the projects that they want to do and all the departments they want to do and how many people they've hired. And they say, well, we can't fund that. That we don't have the budget for that. And so you're going to have to cut out 4, 5, 6 positions or 10 positions, and you're going to have to live at that. Well, that's great. I'm all for that at welfare. But you can't do that in the sheriff's department. You get people shot, like what happened up in the foothills, right? Or you get people stressed out and they just say, this is too dangerous out here. There's not enough people on duty right now, and I need somebody to have my back. And they just go to another, I don't know whether you've noticed this, or you don't know any law enforcement people. I do. A lot of them are leaving the profession and just saying, I don't need this, right? I'm going to get killed out here. And I like this work, but I got a family and I got kids and I want to see them get married. So I'm not going to do this work no more. And so that's what's going on. But the problem is with the political figures that mismanage the money. And it's been happening for years, since the 1990s. Here we're at almost 2020s, right? All right. So these meetings are going on. And my friend who knows something about the Brown Act said today to me, Lou, they're violating the Brown Act because they should have posted that meeting, because supervisors can all show up at the Officer of the Year banquet and drink a beer and have some tri-tip, and they could all be there, all 5 of them. And that isn't a Brown Act violation. But if they come together and they start getting asked questions and shooting their mouth off and talking back and forth, that's a meeting. And they can't do that without announcing that, properly noticing people. So they went out there and did the shuck and jive, trying to convince people that they should pay another 1% sales tax on top of all the other taxes. Honestly, man, I've read them on the air here, but I'm not going to do it today. I've got a list of over 100 taxes that you're paying. You think, I'm not paying 100 taxes. I'm telling you, you are paying 100 taxes, unless you're homeless. If you're running a household, et cetera, you're paying over 100 taxes. All right, we're going to take a break and be right back. We got a second half of this show, hour and a half left. You might think, I can't take it. Well, then you can listen to something else. Turn on the music. All right.
Take me off your mailing list. You can write me.
Well, besides the Sutter Butte Tea Party Patriots, another outfit that helps us is Elite Universal Security. You might know him. Monty Hecker started that business. Monty's a veteran, and it's been very successful. He operating out of Yuba and Sutter County, up in Butte County, and all the way up to Redding. And the cool thing about it, not only can he help you, but if you've got some security issues, but he could also put you to work. And if you don't know, if you'd like to be involved in that kind of business, and you think, I wonder how you get involved in that, he can tell you and actually train you and actually have classes that can take care of that kind of business. And I've been wondering about Monty here recently because I got some tweakers in my neighborhood. In fact, I was talking at the TIP meeting. We had a trauma intervention meeting last night. In fact, I just got a text while we were waiting to get back on the show here. We just did 2 more calls. We're up to 24 calls as of right now, which is the night of the 15th. But anyway, we were talking about this gun raffle we have going, and I mentioned last session that we have this handgun, Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm, and we're going to sell 300 tickets at $20 a piece. So last time we did this, we had a a gun operation, a shooting range. They donated an hour worth of shooting for each ticket. But I asked the person who kind of did the work on this. They said, we got an hour's worth of shooting? And she said, no, they wouldn't do it this time. So I said, well, I'm going to set up, how if you hunt ducks up here, when I was a kid, I hunted ducks in a duck blind. And when I was a kid, but I said, well, I'll set up a blind and we'll have shoot tweakers down on 11th Street. And I'll give an hour's worth of shooting in the middle of the night, and we could see how many tweakers we could pick off driving by my house. And have it, they could have free shooting out. I could just sink a duck blind or a tweaker blind right in my front yard, because since Yuba County supervisors put in that 14 forward, it's totally, our whole neighborhood's totally changed. And we got the, 40 years old guys on the bicycles with the little gloves with the fingers cut out of them, and the little trailer, doggy trailer in the back of them, hauling stuff back and forth and back and forth. And now guys are coming down the street with their face covered, like a Muslim dude, like a female, and they got their face covered and sunglasses, so you can't tell who it is, right? And so I told you last week that I caught one in my yard or in my garage, and we did a catch and release, the first catch and release I've ever done, because now they don't, if you steal something under $950, they don't do anything to you anyway. They just let you back out. So you can catch, as long as you steal like $800 item, you never do amount to anything. So I thought I asked the guy what he's doing in my garage. So I was looking for something to drink. I said, you should have said so. You could have come to the door. I'll give you something to drink. So I gave him something to do, patted him on the butt, sent him on his way. So, but I think we could cut down on tweakers, and I could get, and we could get more bang for the dollar on this auction by setting up I could just get one of those duck blind tanks and sink it in my front lawn, and we could drop a couple of those bicyclists going by. Tweaker blind. Right? So anyway, Elite Universal Security supports us, and you can get a hold of those folks at 530-749-0280. I was noticing that Jeff Stevens and Cherie Stevens, who are friends of mine, they farm out there in Sutter County, and they do some fancy farming. They got some beautiful melons and peaches and all kinds of fruit. Oh, it's nice. And they got some pies out there. But lately, they have been assaulted by tweakers, and I think I'm going to see if I can put a tweaker blind out on their property, because they got people stealing from them, stealing equipment, dumping garbage, dumping mattresses, dumping furniture, crashing into their equipment. In fact, when Santos here that we're working together tonight, when we worked at Glad Tidings together for years. They would drive, they couldn't get into our warehouse, and they would drive their vehicle right through the roll-up door. They would just assault it like you would in the military. They would do an assault on the building, and then they brought in their tools, and they would unbolt the siding or peel it back. I mean, it was unbelievable. So tweakers are amazing. They are not human. They're like those zombies on TV where they shoot them all the time. That's where I got the idea of the tweaker blind. And so, anyway, Monty Hacker has some classes that you can dip into, like if you need to get a firearm certificate to do a concealed weapon or something like that. They have a course coming up on June 23 and 24. Right here in Yuba County, and they have ones inside the classroom. They train you. The next day they take you out with that gun of yours, and you can just fire that thing off, and they train you how to shoot and hit something. But they do all kinds of training, and you can go on their website at API-academy.com, API-academy.com, and you can see what's coming up, because they do all kinds of training like guard card training, pepper spray, handcuffing, taser, all that kind of stuff. Lots of training. They list it all there, and some of it you can even do online. So check it out. Call Monty, 530-749-0280, and tell him you heard about it over here with Live with Lou, and maybe he'll be happy. So I was talking to you about catch and release, and a lot of you, the problem is in November, we will probably have up to 20 measures. There's going to be another water bond. People are suckers for water bonds, and they'll just keep voting water bonds, water bonds, water bonds, water bonds, water bonds. They'll just keep voting yes, 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 and they never do get another dam, because the people running this state, they're liberals, and they don't want any more dams. So they don't want any more. They don't want to create any more water resources. What they want you to do is they want to take that money and build bike trails. They take that money and give it to unions to pay them off, and they do other things with the money, conservation, things like that. And they do not create any new water resources, even though we have phenomenal amounts of water in the winter that move through this area, up and down California. We have one of the biggest states in the union, all up and down the coast, and there's huge amounts of water. And so anyway, there's going to be all these measures on the ballot, and many times you vote for them and you have no idea what you're voting for. So what you've done twice now is you voted to reduce the penalties for crimes. And so the government has followed your directives, and they've let people out of prison and out of jail that were already sentenced and doing time. People that had robbed stores, strong-arm robbery, all kinds of stuff. And they're back on the streets. And so what's happening now is there are more and more crimes being committed because the legislature did exactly what you asked. And so that's affecting everything. So let me just give you an idea of what's happening. Crime is up in the state of California because of your choices on the ballot. You think, I didn't know it was going to make that big of a deal. Well, yeah, it made a huge deal. You've weakened the 3 strikes law, and you've weakened lots of crimes, like even assaults, sexual assaults are minimals now. And you could get, I don't know how much, like you could have your computer stolen, and it's a misdemeanor, right? So according to the U.S. Department of Justice, in 2016, only 42% of all violent crimes and 36% of property crimes were even reported. Just like the crime I had the other day, caught a guy in my garage. I didn't report it because why? Why bother the police coming over for that? I'd rather have them work on something serious, right? Because they're not going to press any charges anyway. They're going to cite the guy for trespassing. It was nothing, right? So we just did a catch and release. So when they break it down further, aggravated assaults, 58% don't get, 58% were reported. In other words, the rest of them didn't. Aggravated assaults, beat somebody up. Robbery, 54% get reported. Rape or sexual assault. We did 2 rapes with Tip in the last week and a half. Only 23% of sexual assaults get reported. Domestic violence, about half, 48%. Intimate party violence, I guess that's not rape, but kind of close to it, 47%. Simple assault, 38%. Property crimes, just 30% of thefts are being reported. And people are just running wild in the streets, just taking stuff. The other day, I got these tweakers all over now. It's just amazing. Heroin addicts and tweakers. So they're bright red. We're near CVS and Walgreens. So a bright red, I was up early in the morning, and I was looking out my window and having a cup of coffee, and here comes a CVS cart with big stereo equipment pushing right down the center of the street. And he went right across the street and dumped it off at this guy's house, the tweaker. And then 2 hours later, a really cool car comes, one of those really lowered, really cool cars, I don't know, Dodge something. And they loaded it all up and they made off with it. And I thought, well, there you have it. And then they parked the CVS cart in a vacant lot and went on about their way. Like, we don't need to take it back to CVS. Somebody else will do that, right? Like I tell the kids in juvenile hall. By the way, I need to do a shout out. I forgot to do that already. I told the guys at juvenile hall, I'm giving you a shout out. Straighten up over there. Fly right. I know some of you are going to prison, but there's a lot of good people over there trying to straighten you up in prison, just like there is in juvenile hall. So read the Bible and quit socking people and doing stupid stuff to people. Be kind to people over there at juvenile hall. All right. So property crimes, just 30% are being reported. Only half are residential burglaries. Come home, your place has been just trashed. Broken door. A lot of people are just like patching things together and moving on. The most reported crime is auto theft. And but we have a lot of auto theft. So what's happening is the reason this is happening, there's more and more crime. The reason the spike up in crime is because there's not the consequences. And a lot of you liberals out there think, well, we just, their mom didn't breastfeed them when they were young. And that's the reason they just didn't get enough time on the chest. Or mom just fed them too darn much candy. We know today that you're supposed to eat fresh fruit and just too much candy. Twinkies, for instance. Who came up with the Twinkie idea? It doesn't even have any food anywhere in it. It's like came from an extraterrestrial. But they found one that was made in 1954, and it still was fresh as can be. So, in 2016, only 45% of violent crimes and 18% of reported property crimes resulted in arrest. I want you to think about that. 2016, only 45% of reported violent crimes, and 18% of property crimes resulted in arrest. So, like with me with my tweaker, why report it? I had the guy. We caught him in the garage, but he didn't really have anything, right? If he was carrying my Honda Element on his back, then we got something going, right? But he didn't. He didn't have it in his pocket or whatever. So, here's the problem. All you bright people out there voted to reduce all these crimes. And so, and here's the other thing that judges noticed. A lot of the crimes, when I talk to people in Yuba County Jail, because I'm in there 2 times a week, we're in there 3 times a week, but I ask people, I say to the whole group, I said, how many of you are in here and you don't have a drug and alcohol problem? Hardly anybody raised it. 1 or 2 raise their hand in a group of 20. So most every crime that they're doing is resulting in drugs and alcohol. So we used to have a thing called drug court. We still have it, but it's not as effective. And what happened, we'd get people do all these crimes, and they were all high doing them, so they're nutso. And so the judge would say, hey, you can't do this, and you keep doing it, so we're going to give you an option. We're going to give you 3 years in prison, or you can go to a drug rehab, or you can go to outpatient, we'll put an ankle bracelet on you, whatever. And we got a lot of people clean because people don't want to go to prison, right? But we gave them an option to straighten up. Now there's no incentive to straighten up because they don't get enough crime. They don't get enough sentence. You catch and release. So the person stays on drugs because nobody is like working them. They're too stupid. They're too stoned. They're sleeping around at the Budget Inn and all these flop houses and across the street from me. And I got one guy sleeping in the back of a car, in the trunk. Yeah, it's a little condo. It's a little condo. They call it a condominium. Minimum, not a condominium, a condominium. Yeah, they got a little trunk action over there. We had the Yuba City. It's interesting. I started driving up down the street, and I was looking at all the wrecked cars in Marysville. In 2/3 of a block, we had like 9 illegal cars. And they come over, the police chief came over with code enforcement and tagged a whole bunch of them and towed off a van. And I said, thank you, Jesus. But that's just like I was telling Wikiman on the way out, I was going down F Street, and there was a car's been sitting there for months. It had a 1/4 inch of dirt on it and weeds under it and cobwebs. Nobody's towing it. The cars all over Marysville that need to be towed. You got to give them a few days unless it's totally illegal. But for some reason, they towed this one vehicle, but on the 25th of the month, they say there's going to be a big tow party on my block. They're going to do a clean sweep, and I'm going to be sitting there with my iced tea and celebrating with them. All right, so the problem is we got crime is increasing because I kept trying to tell people, liberals are stupid. Actually, I think they have syphilis because it affects the mind. And when crime was really down, when the prison population was up and crime was really down, sociologists, those liberal sociologists in the universities, they couldn't figure out a connection there. But here's what I notice. We paint out graffiti. I notice that when we arrest, because the graffiti artist uses his moniker or his signature. I notice when we arrest him, his signature does not show up anymore. So when we had because in other words, it's like when I write my signature, I have a unique signature, just like you do. So if I was to drop dead, that'd be the end of that signature. So we had a guy that was painting the word crank. You probably remember this all over, everywhere, up 2 and 3 stories up up on buildings. And then we got a tip who he was, and we arrested him. And it's a miracle. I haven't seen that ever since because he went to prison. I said, thank you, Jesus, right? But sociologists, I was just reading through the book of Romans. If you want to read about people having their brain on the stupid channel, read the book of Romans, and God will help you get there if you want to resist him, right? If you want to be real stupid, God will actually bless you in that stupid category. And so when people say, oh, a criminal behind bars, oh, you mean he can't still do crimes out in here? They don't seem to connect it. I see sociology, people are like, well, there's no connection between arresting people and people not doing crimes. I thought, oh, every time we arrest people on a crime spree, the spree slows down. But, you know, the public, they need to learn the hard way. So you need people like, pretty soon you need to hire Monty Hecker with elite security because the police, there just not enough police to go around. We got a couple minutes? Okay, we're doing okay. So, all right. Oh, let me just mention this since I just scored some cool stuff for the mission, Twin Cities Rescue Mission. I want to give a shout out. I scored a bunch of plastic utensils, right? And so on the mission newsletter, which I get, I love the mission. It's down the street from me, the Twin Cities Rescue Mission in Marysville. And so they always have needs to help people, and they feed like an incredible. They served 75,000 meals in 12 months. 900 women took showers. 1,300 women received clean clothing. Men's showers 20,000. It's primarily a men's rescue mission. However, they allow women to come in when the men are gone and to clean up the ladies, but they don't have housing for them. We need a housing mission for women. 18,000 men received clean clothing. Isn't that great? I just think that's great. The cool thing about it is they're just not feeding the bears. They're like helping them get jobs. And they got a whole program. They have 60 men that completed their 90-day program, which requires them to find a job and save money to find a house or apartment and move out. That's the idea. I got a kid that across the street, he's a tweaker. He never left home. It's all his mom's fault. I don't know whether she didn't breastfeed him. I don't know what the problem was. She kept him on the banana puree too long. Twinkies. I don't know what she did. She let the kid smoke dope and make excuses for him instead of slap him up and shove a bar of soap down his throat. Anyway, the mission can always use, this is on the bottom of this thing, the mission can always use hamburger. I want you to think about this because maybe some of you can help. Butter, syrup, toilet paper, paper towels, bottled water, to-go boxes, and plastic silverware. I just say plastic utensils. So I got a bunch of bags of utensils for them, brand new, not secondhand. We'll be right back, and we got, what do we got, an hour left? All right, get a tuna sandwich while you're out there. All right. Well, we're sitting up here on the bunker on Mount Huth in East Linda, out here in the state of Jefferson. We're hoping for Yuba County, one of 58 counties in California that are being run like a communist country, and they just want more and more of your money. And if I have time, I'm going to talk about the water rationing that's going to be coming up. But there's just one thing after another we're faced with and being assaulted with from government. They're just wanting in our pocket, take our money, everything. So I wanted to mention, last week, I think I talked about it, and then I maybe wrote something about it in the Territorial Dispatch. If you want to ever look at the articles, I write a couple for the Territorial Dispatch. You can go online. You don't even have to leave your home, territorialdispatch.biz, and just look for the article in the paper. You can read it just like you'd flip the pages on a paper. You can read it right there. So I wrote an article about one of the latest scams on the government is called food insecurity. And so now we're so screwed up and so incompetent as parents and adults that you can't trust parents today enough to feed their own children. Did you know that? And so now we have breakfast, lunch, and dinner at many schools. And so when school lets out, because the unions, they don't do, we're doing school like we did it in the 1800s here. And, we got computers now, but the school system, since it's run by unions, they're stuck in the mud and backwards. And so we're still running schools like we were in the pre-industrial age. So we take this, we wonder how our kids aren't learning, and we're teaching all kinds of baloney, right? In fact, I don't know if I'll have time to get to this or not, but we focus on transgender stuff, sexual stuff, stupid stuff, instead of the basics of what they need. So we take these, when we take a break in the summer, right? If my mind has always been like a colander, like that little bowl with holes in it. Like I put stuff in the top and it falls out the bottom pretty quick. So during the summer, I forgot everything they taught me last year, and I have to start fresh again. And but what they figured out, instead of teaching kids more in the summer, they feel, hey, if we don't feed them all summer, they're going to starve to death. They call it food insecurity. They can't really say they're starving, because I've driven all over Yuba Sutter counties for many, many years now, almost 100 years. And I have never run across a kid laying along the side of the road with his ribs stuck out and flies landing on his face. I never have. So they can't argue that, just like they couldn't argue global warming. So then you could say, well, really what the problem is the seasons change. They call it climate change. Even though in the Bible, you don't even have to, you could be mentally ill and you can read the Bible and you can tell that God ordained that out there in Oliver's and Linda, that means he fixed it up that way, that there'll be seasonal changes, that there'll always be seasonal changes. If they stop, that means you died, right? And you passed, and there's no seasonal changes once you die. In the meantime, we have seasonal changes, and the scientists called that climate change, and that's a reason to take more of your money and give them more grants. That's what that's all about. And so, anyway, they came up with this idea. Since most teachers and principals think that you're stupid, and they won't tell you that, but they think the best place for your kids to be is sitting under their tutelage all day, even if they can't read when they end up the day. So they now are saying, we need your kid, because we don't think he can come up with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich at your house or a couple eggs. So therefore, just send him down to school. We'll feed him. You don't have to do jack. So pretty soon, you don't just, you can just make a doggy door for your kid, right? Let him in and out of the doggy door and just say, hey, if you're hungry, go down to school and eat. We're not serving food over here anymore, right? We're not doing food. We're spending our money on meth or marijuana or opiates, right? It's just like that food budget. We're going to redeploy that so you can go down there and eat at your local school. They call it food insecurity. Kids feel insecure. 1 week, we're paying the health department millions of dollars to fight obesity, and the next week we're paying the school system $1 million to fight food insecurity. I can't figure out I just get up in the morning and I'm confused. And I've thought about going back to drugs, but I don't know that would help. So what I was thinking, since Randy Fletcher and the Yuba County Water Agency is giving out trucks, I was feeling like I was having truck insecurity. And so I was wondering maybe if the Yuba County Water Agency would start giving out some of these surplus trucks, since they don't know what to do with all the vehicles they got. When I drive by the government buildings, like down there around coming off the 10th Street Bridge into Marysville from Yuba City, and look over there to the right where the Montgomery wards used to operate out of, now it's a big, did you notice that more and more businesses have left? And the businesses keep getting taken over by government. Like over in Sutter County, the government took over Kmart building. Geez, look how big that is. You could drive a train through that building. It's so big. But government keeps expanding over there, right? They just have a new budget. They expanded by 9 or 10%. And so they're another group that's going to raise taxes. So then Yuba County took over the Montgomery Ward's building. That's some of the prized real estate in the county, the same way that the Caltrans took over the corner, the busiest corner in the entire city at the Eagles Nest, right? 9th. You drove by there just a second ago. 9th and B, they bought that building. And what is it, a parking lot now, or is some a part? It the busiest spot, and now the government just keeps filling up the entire city. We used to have businesses. We said, well, we're just going to forget businesses. We're just going to take all our money from you. You figure out how to get it. So now we have food insecurity and we have obesity. Same kids. So I'm feeling tonight like I have truck insecurity, transportation insecurity. I think I need a truck. I need a truck, and I don't know how I can do this. Whether I need to, I think it may be a gift of public funds to just give these trucks out like that, though. What my people that I have friends that work in government, and they say, Lou, most government agencies, if you have surplus property, you have to sell it for fair market value. You have to sell it for fair market value, or have somebody bid on it, right? You have to put it out to bid. You just can't say, God bless you, have a good day, because it shows favoritism. Like, are you saying that the Yuba County Water Agency, you like Native Americans better than un-Native Americans? Let me just say this. There are no such thing as Native Americans. I think, oh my God, now what is he saying? I'm just saying there isn't. Human beings were not planted in the U.S. They've came here. They're all imports. You get it? Read the Bible. Right? You think what they evolved from slime plus time off the Pacific Ocean? That ain't how it happened. They immigrated over here. So people say, Mexicans say, oh, that was all our property. No, it wasn't. You guys came, you had indigenous people down there that immigrated into Mexico, and then you had the Spaniards come over and kicked your rear end and screwed all the women and made Mexicans, right? It's just like people devoured people, right? So all you're saying is, well, we got here first. It's like taking first in line, right? It's like when I go to the grocery store, even if I'm first in line, it gets slow. So it's like being first in line in the grocery store. The Mexicans, how did the Mexicans get here? They came to this continent. It all started, dude, over in the Middle East. Think about it. You know, the Mormons are stupid. They were saying that the Indians, the Native Americans, were Israelites, and that the Israelites immigrated over here. You know that? You didn't know that? Oh, that's how they claimed they saw this whole Moroni angel thing and all that kind of stuff. That's how they claim all this divinity over here. That the Israelites, the Mormons are all tied into the Israelites, and they fit in Native Americans. But the problem is, once they started to sort out the DNA. I took this biology course. I was shocked. They showed me DNA out there. I went to take this biology course. We were fussing around with DNA in the labs and stuff. And so they can look at your DNA. You ever had your DNA done? Well, they can look at your DNA. You think, you know how people say, well, I said, what are you anyway, Santos? You say, well, I'm this part Native American, this part Mexican, this part Irish, A lot of people, they just talk trash. Somebody told them. But when they do the DNA, they can tell you, boom, they can tell you exactly, right? And so when they did the DNA on the Native Americans, there's no Israelites in those people. There's nothing in there. There's no connection at all. So anyway, I got off on a little rabbit trail there on that deal, but I'm just telling you that a lot of this stuff is just baloney. So, all right. Where do I want to? Let's see. Let me pick. I got some really good stuff here. Here's one. Do you remember when was it up in Rockland or somebody where, after the shooting, the Parkland shooting, and that whole school went out to demonstrate against guns, and one of the teachers in her classroom, good for her, she brought up a discussion with the students, which I thought was very good, on critical thinking. Like if you're going to now demonstrate against guns, are we going to allow students to just get up and walk out of the classroom and demonstrate about whatever they want whenever they want it, right? It's like going to work. You think, well, I have rights. I'm entitled. So I'm going to go to work at this plumbing business. And if I feel like I want to go demonstrate, you still have to pay me. Oh, really? So in the students, they just think, well, now we're going to demonstrate against guns. Okay, fine. So next week we have a different group going to demonstrate against abortion, right? So here's what happened. This is interesting. So anyway, that teacher got suspended up there by bringing up the discussion, right? That's why if you think you got your kids going to college, you're paying $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a year to have your kids going to college, you think they're getting a good education? Unless they're like just studying the sciences, engineering, business. If they're doing the humanities, honestly, people, you are pouring your money down a rat hole. Because they're being indoctrinated. We played that clip earlier by that psychologist. They're being indoctrinated to hate everything that made this country great. Now, in the Sacramento City Unified School District, a middle school teacher, he was teaching sex ed. Now, I want you to just imagine what they're teaching. Because the curriculum, let me tell you what they teach. The following topics are required to be included in a sexual education course. Information about HIV and other sexually transmitted infections, including the transmission of such. FDA, Federal Food Drug Administration approved methods to prevent it. That's supposed to be taught. Information that abstinence is the only certain way to prevent unintended pregnancy and HIV, STIs, etc., or delaying sexual activity. The value of it. Then discussion about social views of HIV and AIDS. Information about accessing resources for sexual and reproductive health care. Planned Parenthood, stuff like that. They teach them about go there and get an abortion. Information about pregnancy, including Federal Food and Drug Administration approved preventive methods. Pregnancy outcomes, prenatal care, information about sexual orientation and gender, including the harm of negative gender stereotypes. That's like endorsing all this homosexual baloney. Information about healthy relationships and avoiding unhealthy behaviors, in other words, forcing people to have sex, etc. So it also includes in middle school, I'm saying middle school, grade 7, teachers have to show folks how to put on a condom. There you have it. Now, in the midst of this, teaching this teacher showed a film about what it's like to have an abortion for a baby. Showed the baby. There's the baby right there. And so they could see the baby, the size of the baby, and what happens when you abort the baby. That has caused a school-wide meltdown. You can't do that. We can kill the baby. We could tell the kid that it's just fetus. It's just a conglomeration of cells. Do you remember all those years when they told us that? And it was just a damn lie. And they just fed that. And then when they finally said, well, no, it's fetus, but we don't care. And then when they sold the parts and we caught them selling the parts, they said, oh, well, yeah, well, we don't care. Right? And nobody really does anything. All our pro-life people, James Gallagher, Doug LaMalfa, Jim Nielsen, all these people, do you think they do anything about selling body parts of kids? No, they don't. Travis Allen, all you Travis Allen people, the guy abstained. Oh, you don't know what abstain means in Olivehurst and Linda. That means he just passed on voting. He couldn't make up his mind. He had to go take a pee. That's what he had to do. He had to go get a sandwich. He couldn't hang in there to vote against Planned Parenthood and killing kids. And then he calls himself pro-life, and all you church Christian people I know battered me over this election. Oh, Travis Allen, I had a guy tell me this week, oh, I love Travis. I said, he's a baby killer guy. Come on, man. Don't talk to me like that, dude. Oh, we love, and then they go on Facebook in bold letters like they're screaming at me, we love Travis Allen. I say, oh, screw Travis Allen. Guy's a baby killer. The same, Doug LaMalfa, of all people, took me to pro-life, invited me to pro-life, big pro-life fundraisers in Sacramento. I sat at his table. Then he goes back and supports giving money to Planned Parenthood in Washington, D.C. Dang it, this pisses me off. Anyway, we got a teacher down there doing the right thing, showing kids. We just can't tell kids the truth. You just tell them a bunch of crap. It doesn't, you might be a transgender. You have a penis and you have breasts. There you go. Have a happy New Year to you. Then you can go both ways, right? AC/DC. Any way you want to do it. That's what they're teaching your kids in school. No wonder nobody's learning anything. People, did you know suicides have spiked in the United States by 30% since like 1999? In the first 12 days of June, we were on 4 suicides in Yuba Sutter. Listen, people, you think everything is all right? Things are not all right. It makes a difference what you believe and how you live. And you have all these, I tell the kids in juvenile hall, whatever, I tell the people, anybody listen. You got some of the people that are most celebrated people in our country killing themselves. But every week, like we average 2 suicides a month in trauma intervention, in 12 days we did 4 suicides in June. Teenagers on up. Think about it, people. Think about it. What you tell a kid, what you put in a kid's mind affects his mental health. You tell him it doesn't make any difference, he's all confused about his sexuality, you are cursing that kid. You say, oh yeah, having dinner down at the school is just the same as having dinner with your parents at home. Really? Really? Really, really, really? It wouldn't have been the same for me. Thank God I was able to eat at home. And then the teachers say, well, Lou, you don't know. There's lots of kids. Oh, let's talk about lots of kids. Let's roll them all out. Which lots of kids you talking about? I think I've met kids that were grazers. They hit the refrigerator and just grabbed a corn dog out and ate it right out of the fridge. That's better than going down to school and being slopped like pigs. Cafeteria food. It wasn't long ago that a gal named Michelle Obama dished out some garbage and forced can you imagine? We have fallen so low that a woman, the wife of the President of the United States, has power over our diet in Marysville, California. I want you to think about that. If that isn't the stupidest thing, that's the best thing. I wish she would just go screw her husband instead of trying to sling food all over the United States. Why don't you just take care of the guy back there? I don't even know I couldn't even figure out the genders of those 2 people for the last 8 years. But honestly, trying to tell me what my kid's going to eat or my grandkid's going to eat in school, what? You're kidding me right now? You're like designing the diet for people's children, and you're telling them to come over to the school and eat? People, you have lost your mind. You're calling it food insecurity one day, and we're paying a doctor, the head of the health department, $200,000 a year to tell us about obesity on another day? And then you want to say that drug addicts are screwed up? Listen, man, some of those people got more sense than you people that are drinking alcohol out there. The cocktail crew. The Friday night, the happy hour crew. You think that's smart? You need to read the book of Romans. I'm reading through the book of Romans right now in the morning. I'm enjoying it. It tells about God turning you over your own stupid whims. So you want to do that? I'll make it really stupid for you. You'll have a hard time putting on your pants in the morning. Really hard. Are we out of time? No, we're not out of time. We're good. I thought you gave me the high sign. I don't even pay attention to numbers. I just watch you giving me the signs over there. So anyway, this guy, this is great. Alex Barrios, a spokesman for the school district, said the videos are completely inappropriate for the classroom. Oh, really, Alex? I bet you're probably a porno addict, right? completely inappropriate for the classroom, and failed to meet the district's approved family life sexuality curriculum. I bet your sexuality curriculum in Sacramento is a real bell ringer, Alex. He added that the district will address this matter with all the seriousness it demands. I wish that the Yuba City Unified School District would have addressed Mr. Jim Whitaker's antics with all the seriousness that it demands over the last 25 years of action. Whoa, baby. It's amazing. If you don't think your kids are being indoctrinated and jerked around in schools, you got another thing coming. I get a kick out of all these kids. You know, they interview these kids, high school kids and young college kids, think, they're all into socialism, right? Oh, I'm telling you, socialism, you got to, everybody, you know something? I wish we would just say, all you people want to interest in socialism, we should pay a free ticket for them to go to Venezuela, right? I was just hearing somebody talk on the radio today, how Fidel Castro, I meet these people all the time. They visit Cuba. Oh, well, they're such wonderful people, and they have really good health care and education. I thought, well, why did Fidel come here why did he leave Cuba for his medical care? What's wrong with that picture? We'll be right back, and we're going to land the plane here in 30 minutes.
Did you know that California was never supposed to be just one state? Before the state was formed in 1850, there was discussion of forming 3 states instead of 1. California has an area larger than 7 East Coast states combined, and it takes 14 hours to drive from one end of the state to the other. California is simply too large to govern. Rural communities are being outvoted by more densely populated areas. The state of Jefferson is the solution. Please visit SOJ51.net to show your support.
Check out the Territorial Dispatch. Papers are weekly and can be obtained free at distribution or by mail through subscription. It's the only locally owned and operated newspaper in the region. The paper is the rest of the story. And also check out the E-Territorial. It's an online version of the Territorial Dispatch, which features local news and events for the Yuba Sutter, Colusa, and Nevada County areas. You'll also find daily and breaking news updates, current traffic, and weather information, along with a calendar of local events. Visit the E-Territorial at eterritorial.com.
While the world was anxiously awaiting news of whether North Korea would agree to give up their nukes and maybe we have a prayer of peace, the left was whining about a chicken sandwich. And while they were busy telling gay folks what nuggets they can and can't eat, guess what Chick-fil-A was doing? Actually helping people. You know, as Christians tend to do. I'm Brittany Hughes, and they are at it again. And this time, the Huffington Post has openly declared that gay people are not allowed to eat at Chick-fil-A because their CEO is a Christian who believes in traditional marriage. And somehow this means that the entire restaurant chain hates gay people and serves their famous milkshakes up with a big old side of bigotry. Yeah, this again. So now while we're back on the subject, let me remind progressives of a few things about Chick-fil-A. Immediately after the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando back in 2016, Chick-fil-A was one of the first businesses to respond to the tragedy. It didn't matter one bit that the shooter had targeted a gay nightclub. They immediately began offering free food to law enforcement at the scene. They opened up on a Sunday to offer free food to people who were lined up to give blood to the wounded. And they asked that they not be given any recognition for any of it. Here's another one. A Chick-fil-A franchise in Hollywood held a fundraiser to support Campus Pride, a national nonprofit that works to make sure college campuses are safe for LGBT students. Now, you probably didn't hear much about that one either, since the restaurant, again, didn't make a big deal about it. By the way, both of these headlines also from the Huffington Post. Chick-fil-A donates millions in college scholarships for their workers and local students, straight and gay. They regularly feed the homeless in their communities regardless of their sexuality. They donate food to military events, and they do all of this very quietly, while the progressive left is busy ranting about the evils of their chicken sandwich. And by the way, Christians, yeah, we do this stuff all the time. Faith-based charity groups provide about 80% of all disaster relief aid in the U.S. They outpace FEMA. Most of these groups are Christians. In fact, Christians give so much money and train so many volunteers to assist in disaster relief that state governments and FEMA often rely on them to take the lead when responding to a natural disaster. American charitable giving hit a record $410 billion in 2017, and the single largest category of giving? Churches. And we don't give two rips whether those that we help are gay, straight, Muslim, Methodist, white, black, pink with purple polka dots. We don't care. But you wouldn't know that because the left is too busy ranting about a baker who said that he can't in good conscience bake a gay couple's wedding cake. Which, of course, according to the left's own Chick-fil-A standards, the gay couple wouldn't have even been allowed to eat anyway because of the baker's personal beliefs. So go on and be illogical and ridiculous, liberals. We'll just be over here actually helping people and eating more chicken.
You ever eat a Chick-fil-A? Where are they? Do they in Sacramento? How come we don't have a Chick-fil-A here? You know, the only time that the big kahuna here bought us chicken, you remember when they bought us chicken that day, the Popeyes? And Popeyes, behind my house, Popeyes was in there, and they were blocking 10th Street. They couldn't get all the people in there, but the food, I didn't like the food that much. I liked Kentucky Fried better. But I never had an opportunity to eat at Chick-fil-A, but I like that group. I eat chicken overseas in Vietnam. They got Colonel Sanders over there. I don't know if they got Chick-fil-A or not. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about water. In California, if you listen to the politicians, they're saying we're out of water. And the fact is we're not out of water. What we're out of is the willingness of them to manage the water. And they have what they call a Malthusian approach. You remember a guy in you old-timers that actually studied history? And there was a guy named Thomas Malthus, the Malthusian approach to life. Thomas Malthus was an English preacher. I don't even like the fact that he was a preacher. It ticks me off, the guy. And a scholar. He lived in the 19th century. For you and all of us, that's the 1800s. And he developed this theory that global population increases exponentially while global production increases arithmetically. So, in other words, one's multiplication and one's adding. Look at it that way, right? So, his thought was he was a pessimist. He thought we're going to run out of food, we're going to run out of oil, we're going to run out of water, we're going to run out of oxygen, we're running out of everything. So what we need to do is have some abortion. That's probably what the next group thought. I don't know about Thomas, whether he thought about abortion or not, but he thought about global populations going to multiply, but food production wasn't. So he was stupid. He was a scholar, but he was stupid. His theory and the eventual collapse of civilization that it implies has enjoyed lasting influence, particularly here in California. So we had a guy that I think it was, I don't know, was at Stanford, and now his name escapes me, but he wrote a book, and it'll come to me in a minute, called The Population Bomb in the Early 1970s. You remember Anne and Paul Ehrlich? Thank you, Jesus. It just surfaced, man. The marijuana, leftover marijuana from years of abuse slipped to the side. Paul and Anne Ehrlich. He wrote a book called The Population Bomb in like 71, 72. In fact, the guy that was the science guru for Obama was a buddy of Paul Ehrlich's and believed what he did. It was that guy. I can't remember that dude. He was Mr. Science for Obama. And they believed, they even discussed putting stuff in the water to stop people from having children. These guys were nutso, man. So Paul Ehrlich wrote this book, The Population Bomb, very popular on campuses, and it said basically what Thomas Malthus said, that people are growing exponentially, food by addition. He was 100% wrong, and he predicted that he said it's already too late to make corrective measures, that we're going to have mass famines throughout the world. You can read it. Go get the doggone book. Don't believe me. Just read the book. and mass famines in the late 70s and 80s. He said we just can't make enough change fast enough. And they wanted to have they just wanted to do social engineering, monkey around with people like they're going to monkey around, bring the kids down and feed them a hot dog every day. So Mathis was completely wrong, but Governor Brown and the Democrats subscribe to his beliefs. They believe that there's a limited. Remember when Barack Obama would say, we're running out of oil, we only have so many years of oil, and Sarah Palin said, all we need to do is drill, baby, drill, and they mocked her. Well, she was right, he was wrong. And now we've got more oil than we know what to do with. We're shipping it all over the world, selling it. We got guys working in oil rigs all over the place. They're making all kinds of money, except in California. So the California guys are subscribing to this, that they create a false scarcity. We don't have enough water. We don't have enough power. The air we're wearing out the air. Everything's in short. So who do you think made a lot of money on the global warming? That would be a guy named Al Gore, who made billions. Do you think he saved the world? No, the world didn't need saving by Al Gore, but he made billions of dollars. I don't have my numbers wrong. Billions of dollars hustling stupid stuff and getting the government to give him lots of money. So what we have is a liberal move to control the environment in California. Now I want to tell you the truth about this thing and give you an idea of how wrong this is. In California, on a regular dry year, because some years are dry, some years wet. On a dry year, rain will produce about 150 million acre feet. On a really wet year, like we had a couple years ago, when it turned around, we had the what they call the March Miracle after Bobby Conner prophesied at Glad Tidings. We had 300 million acre feet. That's why Pat Brown, Jerry Brown's dad, created the California Water Project, because they thought, hey, this place is wonderful. It's expanding. People want to come here. We have all these wonderful farmland. We have lots of water. We just need to divert it, manage it, hold it. And so it's kind of like when you make a lot of money one month, you don't spend it all. You put some in the bank. So when you have a lean month, then you can use it, right? You save it. So here's how the water breaks down. Right now, 48% of all water in California goes down the river and into the ocean. 48%. I want you to hold that figure. Or about, on just normal times, about 31 million acre feet. And it just goes to be used for the environment. They just let it go. They don't manage it. 42% is diverted off to agriculture. About 27 million acre feet. You like to eat? You can't do it without water. And then in the urban areas, just 10% or 6.6 million acre feet. And then that's broken down into residential, 3.7 million. This is the entire state of California, folks. 3.7 million versus urban, 2.9 for commercial and government use. So when they tell you we're going to cut the amount of water you're using to 55 gallons a day inside your house, actually a lot of you, that's all you're using now. And they're going to cut. The fact is they don't want to build any more dams. If we built more dams, we could utilize more water, not just to waste water, but to produce with it, to produce more food with it, right? So they tell you, okay, we can put in a tankless water heater, one of those water heaters that doesn't store a lot of water, but they just heats up a little bit and gives it out to you. This is cost to retrofit a home. So what they're going to force you to do is put in a tankless water heater, a water-efficient dishwasher, water-efficient clothes washer, water-efficient toilets. I already did the water-efficient toilets, and they didn't cost as much as what they're saying here. Low-flow faucets, low-flow shower heads. So they give a budget of $7,500 to do that in your house. to totally change over your house to cut back on the water. Now, I think that's a little high because I put in a couple toilets. I love them. They're brand new toilet. They were cool. I needed to change them out anyway, and they use lots less water. And the water in the city of Marysville is the highest in the valley here. So anyway, but this article that I read, which is a very long and great article, it's a scam. The whole water control thing is a scam, and people are making millions of dollars. It's just like Al Gore made millions of dollars off the whole global warming thing. There's a couple brothers named the Steyer brothers who are incredibly liberal guys. The Steyer brothers, Tom Steyer, they made a lot of money in the oil industry. Then they switched over, and now they're making money in the green industry, right? It's just money. It's just business to them. They don't have really, they talk like they have real convictions about it. It's just, they just want to make billions. And so what they're doing is they are controlling, like the whole cap and trade thing, raising the money 50, 60, 70%, 50, 60, 70 cents on the gallon. That money is not going to repair roads. That money is going to the union pension funds. It's all about supporting liberal causes. It has nothing to do with a shortage. They say we have a shortage of oil. Remember, Jimmy Carter says we're running out of oil. He was wrong. Obama says, well, we just can't drill our way out of it. He was totally wrong. It was just a bunch of BS. Al Gore says the seas are going to flood up. Remember, Obama said, I can reduce the level of the ocean. Do you remember when he said that? Al Gore said, if we don't do something immediately, New York will flood. The oceans are rising, and they're going to come right up and flood New York. It's just baloney. The polar bears are all dying. They didn't. The ice caps are all melting. They didn't. We got plenty of ice up there. This is all a bunch of crap, and people are conserving, and the amount of water that will be saved is so minuscule. I'm talking about the amount of water saved by you being more and more and more thrifty, right? Which you probably can be. But the fact is, the amount it will save over the 300 million acre feet a year in a rain year, or 150, it's negligible. It's like a cup of water versus all the water you use in a month. It's negligible. They've done the numbers. This is just simple science. They know how much water is coming through. The Yuba County Water Agency with Bowlers Bar Dam, they keep track of every cubic foot of water coming through that dam. They know exactly what's going on. They know on every river how much water is coming through, cubic feet. It's easy science. This is not hard stuff. And this article said, this is epic folly. These conservation measures, as described, are going to cost consumers tens of billions of dollars. When fully implemented, the total annual savings might be around 500,000 acre feet. And we're talking about 300 million acre feet. Come on. And 48% is just going down to flush the fish. Now, I want you to think, what happens when you take a pee? Think about it. I've thought about it. You flush the toilet sometimes, right? Because they don't want you to flush it all the time, right? They said don't flush it all the time. So when you flush it, where does it go? It's cleaned up and it goes back in the river. It doesn't disappear, right? When water evaporates, it does not disappear. It goes into the cycle of the atmosphere. That was basic science, what, in the middle school? 3rd grade, 4th grade? Water evaporates, it goes up in the atmosphere, it comes back down as rain, right? It's like there's nobody up there manufacturing rain somewhere, right? Hold that thought. So when you water your yard, it creates plants, which are good things. It sends off oxygen. The moisture comes out of the ground. It goes up in the atmosphere. It eventually comes back as rain. The water that runs off goes back in. When we irrigate or water gets in the gutter, it goes into the sewage plant, gets cleaned up, and goes into the Feather or Yuba River. And it goes on down. It's cleaned up. If they violate it and it's not the right combination of chemicals, right? It's not clean enough. It's going to hurt the fish. The city of Yuba City, the city of Marysville, Linda, they get fined tens of thousands of dollars immediately. No appeal. It's a big deal. So this whole thing of like, well, we're not going to have any water. You know something? During the entire drought, the bad drought we just went through a few years ago, do you know that the water table in Marysville did not drop an inch? I want you to think about that. Did it drop elsewhere? Yeah, it did drop elsewhere. It dropped in like Southern California big time. That's why we sold water down there. But because of the aquifers in Oliver and Linda, that's like underground swimming pools, right? Aquifers. Because of the aquifers under Marysville and the Yuba and the Feather River being on each side of these two of this city, they even if they're low, they refill the aquifer. So the folks in Marysville may not have the best of all the world, but they got plenty of water, right? And when the Bullards Bar Dam came in and they began to pump water out onto the ground, what did it do? It went down into the substrata and went into the aquifers and replenished them. When they ditched water down into South Yuba County where the aquifers were dropping because of use from farming, etc., and it was a drought, they replenished the aquifers. The aquifers are higher than they've been in a long time. I've looked at the charts myself, and I'm not that smart, but I have people that are I have the charts at my house, and so the water it's all how you use it. I use water different now than I did 5-6 years ago. I'm thinking about how I use it so I don't waste it, right? I get more, not because it's going to disappear. It's I don't want to spend the money to Cal Water to pay for it. I just use it more efficiently because, right? It's like you don't spend it. It's very expensive water in Marysville. It's maybe 4 times as much as it is in Linda or Yuba City. So this whole thing about water conservation is a nutso socialist garbage plot. Now, I got to tell you this before we finish. Oh, we're almost finished. It's almost finished. So, okay, 4 minutes. Let me remind you, listen, set the 28th aside to go over to the Yuba City Hall and set in on this discussion about how we can get behind the future governor of California, possibly John Cox. Okay? Go over at 6:30, Yuba Sutter Republican group, conservative Republicans. It's interesting now. We used to call them Republicans. You thought they were conservative. Now we got to add that word in, and then we'll have the extra conservative or the real, genuine conservative Republicans, right? You have all these slice and dice them, right? Like some alcohol's 10%, 6%, 12%. That's 100%. We need some 100% conservative Republicans. So go over to that. So anyway, this water thing, folks, is a bunch of baloney. And the fact is, we need more dams because and we need to properly manage dams because they're a blessing. God has given us the water in abundance. We need to manage it. To whom much is given, the Bible says, much is required. If you're stupid about how you manage your money or how you manage your car, take care of your car, or manage your clothes or take care of your house, bad on you. Bad on you. But the Bible says, if you are faithful in the small things, I'll give you bigger things to be responsible for. Water is really important, right? We should manage the water in this beautiful state and put all the farmland back to work and put everybody back to work. And we can take care of it's not anti-environmentalism. We can take care of everything. We got to get off the Thomas Mathis stupidity. Thomas Mathis may have loved Jesus, but he didn't know jack diddley when it come to how things work in society. People come up with smart ideas like desalinization. It took 18 years to set up one desalinization plant in the San Diego area. They could have done it in 2 years without all the environmental stupidity. Israel in a desert does not have water problems. Hold that thought. We'll be back next week, and the Wiki Man said we're going to go live whether I like it or not. So we're coming back. God bless you. Stay tuned for these sports guys. They're liable to really give you some joy in your life. Okay, catch you later.